Infestation is inferior. It's got measly damage, forces the worst saving throw, deals the worst damage type, and has a secondary rider effect that's both random and lackluster. All that being said, this bug-themed cantrip does have some interesting use cases. To get things rolling, here's a spell description and the classes you can cast it. Now let's get into 8 ways to use Infestation in your next D&D game. The number one most valuable thing that Infestation can do is create distance without provoking opportunity attacks. Forcing an enemy out of melee range has the benefit of allowing allies to run away without taking any pot shots on the way out. While Infestation's random directional nature can never guarantee that the target will be forced in the correct direction, it's not a bad thing to attempt in some situations. Notably, if you're using a grid, Infestation is best used when an enemy is diagonal from the ally you hope to help. That way, there's a 50% chance that they'll be moved out of melee range instead of a 25% chance. For example, if a goblin is 5 feet northwest of your ally, Infestation will put him out of range if it forces him to move north or west. If the goblin is 5 feet west of your ally, it will only put him out of range if Infestation forces him due west. Another time when Infestation is actually pretty useful is when you can target creatures who are near hazardous terrain. Things like traps, cliff edges, and spells like Spike Growth all come to mind. The forced movement from Infestation can cause a target to run into dangerous terrain, potentially multiplying its damage by quite a bit. Again, consider your odds of moving the enemy in the right direction based on their positioning. If they're in the center of a spike growth, it doesn't really matter which way they run. But if you're trying to make an enemy fall off a particular ledge, you might only have a 1 in 4 shot of it working. And that's assuming that the spell even lands. In any case, pairing Infestation with spells that deal damage when entering the space for the first time in a turn, like Cloud of Daggers, or apply other nasty condition like a Web's Restraint effect, can make it a whole lot more valuable as a cantrip. It's kind of like a mid-range shove effect that's random in nature. Another worthwhile and fairly common use of Infestation is to break up creatures with pack tactics, which is a feature that gives them attack advantage if they're next to an ally. Infestation can break up these formations, reducing the offensive formidability of your foes. However, it's worth pointing out that the most common creatures with pack tactics are wolves, kobolds, and thugs, so Infestation's usefulness here kinda falls off in the mid-game. One thing that never falls off in power, on the other hand, is Infestation's ability to get enemies out from behind cover. Because it forces a Constitution saving throw rather than a Dexterity one, a creature behind half or 3/4 cover will have no extra defense against your Infestation spell. This means you have a decent shot of landing Infestation, better than an attack roll or dex save spell anyway, and possibly forcing an enemy out into the open. Your ranged allies will thank you when your bug power scares the bad guy out from behind the wall so they can more easily snipe them without a bonus to his AC or dex saves. Another good use of Infestation is to target mounts. The rules state that an effect moves your mount against its will while you're on it. You must succeed on a DC 10 dexterity saving throw or fall off the mount, landing prone in a space within 5 feet of it. So, if you target a mount with Infestation and they fail their Constitution save and then their rider fails their dexterity save, you can knock the rider flat on their keister from 30 feet away. The power of bugs, man. Continuing with good tactical uses, Infestation can also be a decent way to end grapples. The rules for the grappled condition state that the condition ends if an effect removes the grappled creature from the reach of the grappler. Infestation will only end a grapple if the target is forced away from the creature who they're grappling, so again, positioning is key and success is never guaranteed. But if you don't have a better option, Infestation can be a good fallback. Another good way to use a spell is to prevent ranged attack disadvantage. If your ranged ally is side by side with a baddie, they'll have disadvantage on ranged attacks and ranged spell attacks. Infestation can remove this little annoyance with some lucky rolls, a disclaimer that goes with many of the uses I've mentioned. And last but not least, Infestation is cool for its roleplay potential. Beyond combat, Infestation is just oozing with flavor. Making bugs, critters, and parasites spawn can really freak out a stubborn nobleman or solidify your character as a boggy spellcaster of deathly power. The damage makes it a little risky to use on low health commoners, but if you can target another creature in the room, say a bug, then you get the cool bug spawning effect without automatically starting a fight. I remember a sorcerer in my party used Subtle Spell to cast Infestation on a fly without being noticed. That way, it seemed as though a horde of parasites were conjured in the air. In this case, they fell from the sky on top of a petty lord who we didn't like very much. He yelped in fear and disgust in front of his court before the parasites ceased to exist, leaving him to look crazy, cowardly, or foolish to most in attendance. Even those who noticed the momentary cloud of bugs thought it augured ill that such creatures should come into being around their lord. That was a special case, but I think there are plenty more times when summoning a momentary cloud of parasites can work to serve the narrative and boost an intimidation or performance check. Those are some of my best ideas for making the most out of Infestation. While a 30-foot range shove that also deals damage sounds like a nifty cantrip, the randomness of Infestation makes it so that it's almost never guaranteed to do what you want, even if it hits. That being said, it can be a very satisfying spell to use when it does do what you actually want it to. Up next, I'm going to go over some common questions about the spell's rules. Rule number 1 is that being immune to poison damage doesn't immunize a creature from Infestation's forced movement. That's because spells carry out their entire effect on a failed save, even if they don't cause any damage. Rule number 2 is that Infestation's forced movement never provokes opportunity attacks. This one's right in the spell's description and in the rules for good measure. Infestation also won't trigger Booming Blade, which requires that a target willingly moves. And my last rule reminder is that blocked means the creature literally cannot move. It does not mean that moving will cause self-harm. A creature can't occupy the same space as another creature, or an object, wall, etc. If a creature can move into hazardous terrain though, and Infestation forces them to, then they move into that terrain and suffer the effects. Those are my best uses for Infestation, and answers to the questions I see come up most often around the cantrip. To close things out, let's answer the most important question, which my thumbnail may have spoiled the answer to. Is Infestation good? My answer is no, Infestation is not a good spell. This really boils down to two factors: the spell's Constitution saving throw and poison damage. Constitution is the highest average ability score of creatures in the game's main monster sourcebooks, with an average modifier of +2. Poison damage is the most common resistance/immunity in the game, with about 1/4 of DnD 5e's creatures sporting 1. This combination conspires to make Infestation tie for the least likely to land damaging cantrip in the game. Poison Spray also has the same two problems. Beyond that, Infestation's utility effect is incredibly lackluster. Moving an enemy 5 feet in a random direction certainly can be useful, I hope this video shows that, but it's almost never the best thing you can do with your turn. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you found this guide on Infestation helpful and can show your appreciation with a like and subscribe. It's a massive help for small YouTubers like me. If you have any stories about using Infestation in your own Dungeons & Dragons game, or questions about the spell's rules, please share them in the comments below. This is DnD Lounge wishing you the best of luck in your next spellcasting venture.